It's week 4 of the NFL. We give you our best 3 bets for this Sunday, and it all starts right now. Hey guys, it's Matt from GrandstandBetters.com, and we give you our best 3 bets for week 4 in the NFL. But first, make sure you go ahead, hit that subscribe button for all our free picks, predictions, and contests throughout the year. And while you're at it, smash that like button if you are ready for another fun-filled Sunday of NFL football. I know we are. So without further ado, let's dive in to NFL week number 4 and start with the Tennessee Titans versus the Indianapolis Colts in the 1 p.m. time slot. Colts are 3.5-point favorites, and the over-under of this one is set at 42.5 points. Titans come into this matchup 1-2 on the season after just squeaking by the Las Vegas Raiders last week, 24-22 at home. Tennessee's offense put up all 24 of their points in the first half behind a great rushing game by Derrick Henry. Overall, the Titans, for the game, put up 361 total yards, with Tannehill going 19-27 for 264 and a touchdown. But the concerning thing was, in the second half, this offense again regressed. On the season, the Titans have only 7 points through 3 weeks in the second half of games, and now have gone 5 straight third and fourth quarters without putting up any points. This week, they're going to go up against a very stout rushing defense with the Colts, who are third in the NFL, only allowing 77 yards per game on the ground. So that does not bode well for Derrick Henry, who only has 192 yards on the ground this season and is only averaging 3.6 yards per carry. Now, Tannehill, who is also struggling, only completing 62% of his passes, might be able to exploit a mediocre secondary this week, though the Colts, they're giving up 257 yards through the air at home. And speaking of the Colts at home, they're coming off a great win against the Chiefs, 20-17, as they held Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs' offense to just 3 points in the second half of that game. Matt Ryan and the Colts offense managed to do just enough to get through that win. Ryan threw for 2 TDs in that game, but on the year, he still has more interceptions than touchdowns and is only averaging 6.6 yards per pass. A lot of this can be attributed to some injuries with a few wideouts. They've been unavailable in the recent weeks. The rushing attack with Jonathan Taylor is the only thing that seems to be working for the Colts. Taylor averaging 4.7 yards per carry for 286 yards on the ground thus far. That trend should continue this week, as the Titans have the 4th worst rushing defense in the NFL, giving up 145 yards per game on the ground. Now, Matt Ryan doesn't have the best wide receiver core around him, but he will have them all available this week to go up against a very mediocre Titans secondary. One of which, last time out, when they were on the road, gave up 300 yards through the air against the Bills. So, what is our best bet in this AFC South matchup? Well, this is a big game already for both teams when it comes to the AFC South standings, especially since how both of these teams got off to a slow start. The Titans' game plan in first halves has been phenomenal. They are averaging 14.7 points per game in the first half, but it's really after halftime that they falter. We expect to see a different team indoors here in Indiana, and we think that Tannehill will utilize Henry in some check down situations to try to use his skill set in the passing game. The Colts, they will just be going to their bread and butter all game long, which is Taylor. And ironically, although the Colts average 27 rushing attempts per game, they are top 8 in the NFL in offensive plays per game. We like this game to be up-tempo and a back and forth, and both QBs who are prone to throwing interceptions, we expect 1 or 2 of them to throw, and the other opponent might start in a very good field position, maybe in the opponent's red zone area. So with our best bet for week number 5 in the NFL, we're going to take the Titans and the Colts over 42.5 points. Now, the second matchup we're looking at here in NFL week number 5, we're going to look at our Cleveland Browns against the Atlanta Falcons in the 1 p.m. time slot. Browns at the moment minus 1.5 point favorites, and the over-under is set at 47.5. Now, the Cleveland Browns, they're 2-1 on the season after beating Pittsburgh Steelers on Thursday Night Football in Week 3, 29-17. Jacoby Brissett continues to be a game manager of this team as Deshaun Watson serves his suspension. Brissett has completed 66% of his passes, thrown for 4 TDs with only 1 interception on the year. His stats are nothing to compare to those of Josh Allen or Tua for that matter, but the Browns are not asking this guy to be those guys because the Browns have a guy named Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt that can really propel the Browns to victory each and every week. Combined through 3 weeks, they have 500 yards rushing and 5 touchdowns, averaging nearly 5 yards per carry. Chubb is getting about 2/3 of the carries so far, but having Hunt's talent gives him the ability to rest when needed and fresh legs out there on the field against their opponent's rush defense. This week, the Bills will face a middle-of-the-road front seven with Atlanta, who allowed Penny and DJ Dallas to average nearly 6 yards per carry last week. With Cleveland having the #1 rushing attack in the NFL, averaging over 190 yards per game on the ground, we expect them to use another heavy dose of that again this week against Atlanta, a team that gives up 27 points per game. Now, speaking of those Falcons, they have a QB just like Brissett that they're just asking to manage the game in Marcus Mariota. Most likely, the Falcons are going to draft or sign a free agent in the offseason. But for now, Mariota has the Falcons 1-2 on the season, but could easily be 2-1, possibly 3-0 if things went their way here and there. Mariota putting up similar numbers to Brissett with 640 passing yards and 3 TDs and nearly a 64% completion rate. Also, like the Browns, this team has relied heavily on the rushing attack behind Patterson and Mariota. Patterson is 3rd in the NFL in rushing yards behind Chubb and Barkley with 302 on the season, but leads the NFL in yards per carry with 6.2. Falcons complement that rushing attack with utilizing their rookie wide receiver Drake London, who's creating a stir around the league as maybe a possible Rookie of the Year candidate. London already has over 200 yards receiving and is averaging 13 yards per catch, and it's clear that Mariota favors this young man as he has 7 more targets than tight end Kyle Pitts. So, what is our best bet in this game between two quarterbacks that are just asked to manage their team? Well, the Cleveland Browns, in our opinion, look very good. And now, this is going to be a very biased opinion, but please, someone argue with us that if it wasn't for that horrible ending to the Jets game, that Brissett and this team would possibly be going for 4-0 this week. The Falcons with Mariota lean heavily on that rushing attack, as we mentioned, as they are 2nd lowest in the NFL with pass attempts per game. The problem with that is, this week they're going up against a Cleveland Browns front seven that is only allowing 87 yards per game on the ground. They have not let a single back all season reach 60 yards in a game yet. That includes Christian McCaffrey and Najee Harris. So, with our second best bet for NFL week number 4, we are going to be extremely biased here and take the Cleveland Browns -1.5 over the Atlanta Falcons. Now, before we get to our final pick of week number 4 in the NFL, just a reminder that if you are looking for our full card of plays, head on over to grandstandbetters.com and become part of our family. Links below in the description, and we look forward to seeing you join us real soon. But we still have one more best bet for our YouTube subscribers this week, and that's going to take us to a matchup between AFC West rivals, the Las Vegas Raiders and the Denver Broncos in the 4:30 Eastern time slot. Raiders at the moment favored by 2.5 points, and the over-under is set at 45.5. Broncos coming into this matchup at 2-1 on the season after narrowly beating the Texans and 49ers in the last 2 weeks. The Broncos fan base, despite having a winning record, should be worried about Russell Wilson and this offense. Through 3 games, Wilson only has thrown for 2 touchdowns, has been sacked 9 times, and hasn't even completed 60% of his passes and has a 83.2 QB rating. They are second to last in the league, only averaging 14.3 points per game this season. And over the last 2 games, they have a third down efficiency of 29%. That is definitely not the offense the Broncos envisioned when adding Wilson. The good news, though, is they get to play a Raiders defense this week that gives up 376 yards per game and has the 7th worst secondary in the NFL. And with the way that Wilson is targeting Sutton and Jeudy down the field, this could be a breakout passing game for Wilson and the Broncos. Sutton and Jeudy are already averaging 15 yards per catch and have a combined 400 plus yards of Wilson's 740 yards on the season. So, what about the Raiders? Well, after a Week 2 collapse against the Cardinals and last week not being able to complete the comeback against the Titans, Raiders find themselves 0-3 in the basement in the AFC West. Derek Carr has been like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. He's thrown for 850 yards on the year with 6 touchdowns, but does have already 4 interceptions in 3 games. One thing that we love with Derek Carr this year, though, is he is spreading the ball out, as 4 different receivers have already been targeted 16 or more times. When Carr and the passing offense is not working, though, they do have trusty Josh Jacobs to lean on, who is averaging a cool 4.6 yards per carry. The concerning thing, though, is that Jacobs, despite rushing the ball well, has only seen the ball 42 times, meaning he's only getting 14 touches in the backfield per game. That number might even go down this week, as Denver only gives up 81 yards per game on the ground. But let's be honest and fair to the Denver Broncos defense. Some of those games were against mediocre running backs and offensive lines. They faced Penny, Pierce, and Wilson. So if Jacobs is fed the ball enough, this could be a big game for him and testing that defense of the Broncos. So what is our best bet for this AFC West matchup? Well, both of these teams have struggled to start the season. One surprisingly sitting at 0-3 and the other surprisingly sitting at 2-1. Despite having only scored a total of 43 points, the Broncos through 3 games. If this game was in Denver this week, we would think about this game maybe a little different, but it's at Allegiant in Vegas, and we think that both of these teams are going to get out of their offensive ruts. Denver's offense with Russell Wilson will attack a bad secondary of the Raiders, and Josh Jacobs will exploit an overvalued rushing defense the Broncos have. We expect big plays down the field with Sutton and Jeudy and big gaps for Jacobs, mixed in with Carr's ability to find the open receiver no matter who it might be. So with our final best bet of week number 4 in the NFL, we're going to take the Denver Broncos and the Las Vegas Raiders over 45.5 points. That does it for us here at Grandstand Bettors. As always, sit back, relax, enjoy week 4 of the NFL, and we will see you Monday night for 49ers and Rams.